warning. The following program is a satirical look at Indigenous news, politics, and current events. Bannock and tea is advised.
Anin, bonjour, welcome to the Laughing Drum, my beloved Laughing Drumlets. Television so purely and immensely Indigenous, our full back tattoo of Sitting Bull has a full back tattoo of Chief Joseph. We've got an exciting show tonight. The Red Power panel is here and they're going to knock your moccasins right off with truth. But first, as always, let's check out what's been happening on the news. We begin in Catholicism news where the Pope has said nope.
Pope Francis says he can't personally apologize for the role the Catholic Church played in residential schools. For more than a century, the federal government's church-run schools tried to assimilate Indigenous children, many of whom were physically and sexually abused.
Church officials point out Francis asked forgiveness in 2015 for crimes against Indigenous people throughout the Americas.
In a statement, Pope Francis says he can't respond to the request personally, but he has not ruled out a trip to Canada to meet with Indigenous communities.
So you won't apologize for your church's role in probably the largest child sex abuse scandal in history, but you offer a consolation prize? No, I cannot possibly say sorry. Instead, how about I fly there at great expense and you can kiss my ring? You gotta admit, that's not such a bad deal, eh? I guess it's just a coincidence that the Pope's refusal to apologize comes the same week as this.
The Pope reportedly calling into question the existence of hell.
And an Ottawa ice cream shop is taking heat over its unusual name. Check this out.
By now, you've likely guessed we're talking about the ice cream shop Sweet Jesus, and that's where we find Steph Keys tonight. Steph.
Patricia, the shop serves a sweet treat, but the name is leaving a bad taste in the mouths of many believers. Some folks are even taking issue with how it's written. Just take a look at the sign here. Now, at one point in time, the T resembled an upside-down cross. No longer the case here in Ottawa. And one of the S's, which looks like a lightning bolt to most, has been accused of mimicking the Nazi symbol for Hitler's paramilitary organization, the SS.
I don't know, that's really kind of reading into things, but as many Indigenous folks could easily tell you, this whole controversy could have been avoided if they just called it some bullshit Native American name. Then no one would care, except us. A Toronto restaurant owner had a unique way of dealing with vegans who were picketing his eatery. Check this out.
A Canadian chef who was fed up with vegan protesters outside of his Toronto restaurant carved a fresh deer leg in the shop window. Michael Hunter of Antler Kitchen and Bar, a restaurant that advertises locally grown farm fresh food, told the Globe and Mail, quote, "I figured I'll show them I'm going to have my own protest."
Now, while to the best of our knowledge, neither the restaurateur nor the vegan protesters were Indigenous people, it's still troubling to hear someone say that meat is bad. So the Assembly of First Nations issued this statement.
No, just...
All right, now it's time for a little segment I like to call Indigenous People Winning the Internet. We've scoured the web to find the finest nuggets of digital joy to serve up on fresh, hot bannock and serve to you. We begin on Twitter, where according to Cade Ferris, every spring we lose our best and brightest. Navajo T envisions what it's like when someone from native Twitter calls you by your username at the powwow. Jesse Donovan has this to say about the thorny issue of Indigenous self-identification. And how's your treaty rights coming along? On Facebook, the folks at Resi Red Proletariat Memes issued this warning. And finally in March, something beautiful happened on Twitter. Hundreds of people started posting photos of their res dogs, tweeting the hashtag #FindResDogs from Indigenous Lands, which is pretty much what it sounds like. Check this out. Tennille Campbell uses the hashtag to say Chimo is loved, while Lost Girl says it's the best hashtag that has come to exist. We got to agree with her there. Nibini Kwe shared a photo of her Binu and says this hashtag is pure. While user All You Ever Hope For says this hashtag blowing up is what we need right now. Blood Quantum Entanglement says find res dogs from Indigenous lands is the most Indian hashtag ever. Sue Sweet and Sour uses the hashtag to say a little something about the Lakota diet. And, well, it had to be done. Cheyenne uses find res dogs from Indigenous lands to throw a little shade at her ex. Find res dogs from Indigenous lands. You win the internet this week. It would bring a tear to my eye, but colonialism has taken that from me. We have to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll sit down with the Red Power panel. Don't you even think about going anywhere. All right, welcome back to the Laughing Drum. Television so deeply and profoundly Indigenous, your blood quantum increases by 287% just watching us. My Red Power panel is here, and they are ready to tear into the hottest topics facing Indigenous peoples today. This week, the Red Power panel is the only Indigenous person who has ever reverse colonized Europe, Nelson Mayer. Welcome back to the show, Nelson. A man whose mustache has its own trapline, Sasha Mark. And the Chief Joseph of Indigenous comedy, Jerry the Big Bear Barrett. Welcome to you all.
Bonjour.
Guys, we've got a sensitive topic here. We're going to start with the Pope, who says nope. Pope Francis says he won't apologize for the Catholic Church's role in residential schools. That drew outrage from politicians, Indigenous leaders, and residential school survivors. Guys, how big a deal is this?
Well,
I want to apologize right away because, as you know, I was recently at the Vatican, and I was there while the Pope was doing his Wednesday morning address, and I think it's partly my fault why he doesn't want to apologize, because I used the toilet when I was there, and I left a floater, and I wrote for a good time called Mary Magdalene on the wall. I don't think he appreciated it very much, so it's probably my fault.
You hear that, people? If you want to blame someone, blame Nelson. Sasha, what do you think? Floaters aside.
No, it's like, I can't deal with this, you know, it's you know? No, we need an apology. And, you know, like the government's apologized, everyone else has apologized. It's time to set that up, you know.
Jerry?
All right. Well, the Pope is an old man now. In fact, maybe he's forgotten to apologize because he's too pooped to Pope. I don't know. He's up there. But it is a big deal.
If somebody did something to you, Nelson, and they said not sorry, but they said I feel sorrowful about it, would that ease some of those?
You know, I'll be honest. My honest opinion on apologies is they don't mean anything to me. I feel like it's behavior and, you know, changing your behavior. Whatever you did, that's fine. Let's move forward past it. And I'm not trying to be ignorant. Obviously, it's terrible what happened, and there does need to be apologies. The wording behind it, I don't care. Let's like start looking at moving forward, right? That's my honest opinion on that.
What if he pawned some of his golden hats?
Could
We get some angry letters for this show. I can feel it already.
You know, there's been a lot of apologies, as you mentioned, and I just feel like, you know, this is a situation where it's like my ex-wife. I have to apologize a million times for the same thing. Like, come on, let's move forward now.
Nah, I want to hear more now.
How angry are people about this, though? I mean, you talked about, social media is alight with this. Are people ready to storm Vatican City?
Well, you know, Trump wants to build his wall. I think the wall at the Vatican City is pretty tall. You can't really get in there.
You could probably come over pretty easily.
Really?
They have these Swiss guards that are protecting things, but they look like Ronald McDonald. They're dressed up kind of funny. I don't think it really matters. Yeah.
All right, then. Well, maybe. Who knows?
Might be an easy one. Okay, so what would an apology from the Pope even mean? You know, like you said, apologies. You said apologies aren't very important. So what would actually the Pope have to do then to make it meaningful?
You know, reconciliation, restitution. I mean, I don't know what's happened already in terms of the Canadian government. We've seen some of that, right? But I think it's mostly just lip service, right? And I think that you need to actually have action. Let's see something happen, right? Apologies don't mean much to me. I don't think there's anybody sitting at home saying, I can't move forward because I need an apology from the Pope. You know,
Well, I think this Pope said that he may come to Canada and may visit some of our communities. So, kiss his ring, yeah. But I don't think the Pope, he wants to meet with the leaders, the chiefs and the leaders in the government, and I think he should be meeting firsthand the grassroots people, the people who are true Christians and have invested their entire lives into religious beliefs, and talk to them directly.
Yeah, I'd like to see the Pope in a sweat lodge. That's not bad, I think.
He'd be sweating on
it. Wearing his full robes, his full garbs.
The whole thing about what an apology means, this is what I'm wondering. Like, are they scared to actually say sorry because then that opens up the door for people to say you've taken responsibility, so now we can start coming after you for some financial restitution? Is that why they don't want to actually say we're sorry for what we did? Or is it because the Catholic Church, if they apologize to Indigenous people for their wrongdoings, they got to apologize to everybody, and they're going to be pretty busy for all the wrongdoings they've done?
I think they have a lot to apologize for.
Yep.
My understanding of this issue is that the reason they won't apologize is actually because, at least this is what the Canadian Catholics are saying, I believe, is that it's not enough. That to say sorry is not enough. But I think, Sasha, you had mentioned something earlier about that as well. Is the answer then to not do anything at all? Like,
no, no. I think with an apology, there always needs to be action that moves forward too. Like, you can't just stand there and just say, I think an apology is a good way to start, some resolution. But there needs to be some action after that apology. You can't just say sorry for this and then just leave it there.
Truth and reconciliation.
Boom.
Yeah. Somebody was saying that that's enough, and we don't need an apology from the Pope because we have truth and reconciliation happening, and how much more do people need to apologize?
Yeah. All right, let's get serious here for a second.
Oh, like that wasn't serious.
Yeah.
Let's move on to something even more serious.
Let's say you all had magic powers.
Oh.
All right. You had some kind of magic, and you could compel the Pope and the Vatican to do something to atone for residential schools. What would that be? What would you use your magic powers for? Nelson, let's start with you.
Oh, I have no idea where to go with that one. If I can make the Pope do something, I would like them to put Jesus in the Offspring Pretty Fly for a White Guy video, because I think you're claiming that he's white anyway. Let's own it. Go all out. I want to see Jesus in that video. I don't know what it does for restitution. I just want to see it happen. You gave me magical powers. Let's go there.
Sasha?
I change his outfit. Like, it's horrible. That's a sin. Like, that's a big problem. That's where we should start. It looks like he got dressed at Bed Bath & Beyond. Like, it's not okay.
Suddenly we're on Queer Eye for the Pope guy.
I was thinking we should have some sort of a papal powwow.
Yeah?
Yeah, right there in the Vatican City. I don't know. I mean, some of our leaders have been over there, but why not a powwow? How about a round dance around the?
I could see the Pope round dancing.
Yeah.
That would be.
Well, I don't know about that.
Around this,
I don't think but I think a powwow there would be something to see.
Yeah. I think we got enough time for one more topic in this block.
Oh, all right.
Now, this one I feel like we're watching from afar because it's not directly Indigenous, but it's the issue itself. Last week, a Toronto restaurant owner taunted vegan protesters who were picketing their restaurant by carving up a deer leg and eating it in front of them. I need to ask you guys. There are important issues at play here because of the message from the protesters that basically eating meat is wrong, is inherently wrong. What are your first thoughts on this situation?
The whole topic made me hungry when it first came up. A good feast of deer meat. I'm not into eating bear meat. Being the big bear,
that would be cannibalism.
Someone put a big bowl of bear meat in front of me one time, and it was way too much meat. Even if I just wanted, because it would be, I ate as much as if I could, right? But it didn't go over well with me.
That was like cannibalism.
But I'm not a vegetarian at all. You know?
I was going to ask, are any of you vegetarian or vegan?
I am a vegan. I am not.
You are a vegan.
I'm not a good vegan though, because I don't brag about it all the time.
Well, you were eating a bacon sandwich. You were eating a bacon sandwich.
I was not. No.
So you are a vegan. You really are. Yeah.
Yeah, just for show. No, I do be vegan, and it's I'm terrible at being a vegan because I don't brag about it enough, and how I feel about the situation, it's kind of polar opposite. I think it's like I'm a vegan because it's cheap. Like, it's so cheap to eat vegan. Like, you save so much money. Like, meat's so expensive. Like, that's why I'm not in for the cause. I'm like poor, help me. So, but yeah.
Wow.
I'm only a vegan when I'm punishing myself after like you said, when I'm poor and I can't afford anything. I'm in a bet right now where the loser has to be vegan for 3 months. So that's how I view veganism. It's the worst thing in the world to actually have to do. My thoughts on that thing. People have a right to say what they want to say. They have a right to protest. So I think we have to be careful. We protest things. They're protesting. Let's let them do that. But it kind of sucks as a small business owner. you know, that they're in front of his restaurant doing this. He's just trying to earn a living, and he got frustrated and did what he did, which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah.
You know, why not protest in front of the McDonald's? Why the small guy, right? It's like they
there is an Indigenous restaurant in Toronto,
Yes.
right down there in the business center. It would be very interesting to see if they went and protested at the Indigenous restaurant.
That was the thing I was going to ask as well, is that there seems to be a difference. They seem to, often when we hear environmentalists or animal rights activists talk about humane treatment of animals, they often exclude Indigenous people from there. But a lot of, especially Inuit people, seem to take offense at that, saying, no, you can't separate these two things. Eating meat is our way of life, and if you're going to crap on that, you're crapping on our way of life.
I think there's like a lot of privilege when it goes into like being a vegan, and you know, not a lot of communities can do that. They can't get shipped, you know, like fresh produce to them on a routinely basis. So there's a lot of privilege in that aspect too, and I think that you know vegans do need to recognize that. And I think that also too, I do understand that there is a cause for what they're doing too, but it's you know, there's also precedences of like culture that you can't just like interfere with, because this disrupts with what you think.
But I like that they can't afford to ship fresh fruits and vegetables into our northern communities. That's a big point there. For a while there, I thought I was a vegetarian, but it turned out I like the meat, and I like spaghetti. Meatballs is what I like. Yes.
All right, on that, now I am actually hungry. We got to take a break. When we come back, you're going to hear more from the Red Power panel. Don't go away.
Did you know we got the social medias?
Man, don't lie.
It's true. Like the Laughing Drum on Facebook and follow us on Twitter right now.
You know, I never get tired of that. Welcome back to the show. I'm here with my Red Power panel, and shit is about to get real. This past weekend was Easter, and while for kids it usually means Easter eggs and candy, for adults it means turkey or sometimes ham. But go on social media and you can usually find that Easter and other Christian holidays are a pretty divisive issue for Indigenous folk. Why celebrate a Christian holiday when the church has done so many wrongs to Indigenous communities? This is one of the comments and things we hear. Where do you stand, Red Power panel? Did any of you mark Easter?
I really don't understand Easter from my point of view. Like I don't know what Good Friday really is. I don't know what Easter is. I just generally just like pass over it, you know?
Jerry?
Honestly, I was raised Anglican. I went through the 60 scoop, and I was an Anglican family. So time and time again, as I was growing up, my mother would always ask me if I wanted to become an Anglican minister. You know,
wow.
And I thought I'd been to enough church services that I thought, no, this isn't really the path for me. But God bless each and every one of you who are actually on the path to becoming a minister. So yeah,
ministerial.
Again, there you go. God bless you.
So you don't celebrate Easter?
Oh, Easter, yeah, the Easter bunny and stuff. Yeah, no, we growing up in this Anglican family, I was telling boys here that my mother was the organist at the Anglican church, so I got to go to church on Thursday, Friday, Saturday for choir practice. Sunday we set the altar up. I had to wait around and take the altar down, and of course, if it was a funeral, I'd sing in the funerals. So I got a lot of church. I got a lot of church. I got a lot of Easter, Good Fridays, and Easter Sundays under my belt. So I think I'm good. And now my eyes have been opened to the Indigenous culture as well. So that journey has begun as well. Yeah. So I actually need several lives just to figure out, the different paths that people are taking.
Nelson, what about you? Where do you stand on Easter?
I do celebrate Easter.
Yeah.
I try to make it more Indigenous, though. So I do things like I celebrate the next day when the chocolate's 50% off. I hide little pieces of bannock around my house. I hide child support from my ex, that kind of thing, right? But we celebrate, and it's perfect because it is half-price chocolate today, and KFC is having their buffet, so that's perfect. That's the perfect way to celebrate.
Is that a real
Indigenous
thing?
Easter. Yeah, it's a KFC buffet. Let's go.
What better way to
Smash
celebrate
it up.
Easter? Okay. If you did celebrate it, did you really celebrate the Christian side of it, or was it more like the Hallmark sort of?
It was the diabetes side of it. Just a bunch of chocolate for my kids, and that's it. I don't do the Christian thing. I'm not a very religious person, so no offense to anybody who is, just not my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't celebrate it in a traditional manner.
Why do you guys think this is such a, like I talked about it at first, I mean they talk about the history of the church and things like that, but why is it becoming so divisive? Like it seems to me that there's a lot of blowback now when people sort of do these things. Is it because people are more woke, as young people like you might say, or what, you know, what do you think is at play here?
As a woke person, I'm woke AF, lit, shook, I'm everything, you know? I think it's just like, people are more aware of the situation, and I think they just kind of like gravitate towards, you know, exploring their own culture rather than the one that was kind of like exploited onto them.
Yeah.
So I think that's my general understanding of like what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you eat ham this past week?
I did. Did I eat ham? No, I got into a debacle with relatives, so it's pretty much just like whatever, like all these family dinner things are. So like.
And I'm not sure if they have vegan ham yet.
Well, it's gross. It's gross. It's nasty. Don't eat it. It's nasty.
What am I saying? Did you
triggering me?
Yeah, it's tofu ham.
As a vegan, he gets an Easter basket and he eats the grass.
All right, let's have some fun with this then. Pick an Indigenous holiday, any Indigenous holiday, make one up. Buffy St. Marimus, Elijah Harper-Ween. What should we be celebrating instead?
Well, why don't we just call it what it is? Child Tax Day should be Res Valentine's Day every month. We can have that. Or we can rename Valentine's Day to be more reflective of my love life and call it Passover or Palm Sunday, either fits. Something like that, you know?
I'm going to name it after myself. It's going to be Sashonica. It's going to be 8 days of crying, not feeling good about yourself, and the only thing you're burning is, you know, your family connections, you know? It's like
well, if you elected me as chief of the universe, I've designated some parts of the calendar to Navajo Hoedown Day. It's a the Navajo Hoedown Festival is a country music event that celebrates the music of Ernest Monias. So I thought that would be something.
Yes.
I would celebrate that.
That's right. Salmon Sundays celebrate our tribes on the West Coast. I think that would be some. Trick-or-treaty days is a given, obviously.
There you
go. The International Day of Bannock and Bingo, since the Earth itself is round like a bingo ball.
Yes.
Everybody plays bingo around the world, and great prizes for everyone. I think that would be wonderful. National Adam Beach Day. There you go. On National Adam Beach Day, everybody goes to the beach and plays in the Adam Beach volleyball tournament. So I think that's something special. And then there's the Tom Jackson Day of Action. That's where everybody's invited to Parliament Hill and you can protest and bring awareness to whatever topic, whatever cause you want.
I love it. Now we've got some holidays to celebrate. I think we're done. Thank you guys. Red Flower panel, thank you so much for coming this week. Nelson, because it's your first time back on the show now, I want to present to you
a can
of the Laughing Drum Luncheon Meat. Taste the decolonization. That is yours, my friend.
That's fantastic. I'm going to eat it on the bus on the way
I
home.
hope so. Yeah, they're going to love that. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. That's our show for today. We'll see you back here next Tuesday.